Headache 6. Managing user complaints. SharePoint users often complain that service is slow, that it isn't working right, they can't open documents, and so on. Sometimes they're right even when you think they're wrong. How can this happen? Users typically don't access SharePoint from inside your data center, but from the outside. For example, if it takes a user 2 minutes to upload a small 10K document, your system management tools may still tell you that everything is fine. But obviously from a user perspective, it's not acceptable, and they're going to complain. The same way you need figures when you try to improve your environment to make the user experience better, you also need figures to understand why your users are complaining. Administrators have to understand why and how performance is perceived by the users within a company to anticipate their complaints and to be able to work on problems before they receive a call. Managing user complaints starts with anticipating their problems, and for that, administrators need to know how the SharePoint environment is working in real time and from a user perspective. How can GSX Solutions cure this headache? As you may know, if you watched our other videos, GSX Monitor functions as a user. You install GSX on a VM or on a workstation, and from there, GSX will use SharePoint as one of your users would, testing web services, trying to access your critical sites, and providing you response times. Again, from a user perspective. Let's take a quick look at the different actions GSX performs. In the main view, we have different LEDs for our SharePoint environment. The first LED here is going to show you your access and performance from a user perspective for a particular SharePoint server. The second LED here is for your log scanning. So if you set a specific keyword or text string, this will alert you to that test. And then finally, the last LED here represents your SQL environment and the connection to that. So whether that's a single SQL server or mirrored configuration, you'll have that information here. All right, let's take a look at our server settings. In particular, let's look at our web services that we want to test. Each of these is important because it represents common features of SharePoint. GSX will test them as a user in order to detect any differences in performance, allowing you to work on issues before users are complaining. Doing this, you can see how long it takes for a user to display an image, access versioning, access web parts, use a form, copy a document, and so on. We collect that information, and we can see that in our SharePoint statistics area here. So it's going to go out and test that web service from a user perspective and display its access availability here, so the response time for that particular test. This will give you a good idea of what your users are experiencing when they're trying to access the different components of your SharePoint environment. Another way we can look at that is to check out the SharePoint scenarios. So we can set adding a blog post, uploading documents, creating meeting, looking at search services, Excel services, and what GSX Monitor will do is actually go out and attempt to perform these actions in your environment. You can set a threshold on what the expected performance is for that, and then of course an alert if that if the performance falls below the threshold. Another way we can look at that is we can go to our SharePoint site performance. So here we can set up a particular URL for your SharePoint sites. Go out, test the availability of that site. You can set again a threshold for its response time and an alert profile along with that. As you can see, GSX Monitor tracks user experience in order to anticipate problems and give you the time you need to work on the issues before being called every second by everyone in the company. To sum up briefly what we just viewed, GSX, which is agentless and acting as a user, will allow you to constantly check your user performance for all of your SharePoint features, be alerted in case of any issues that impact user performance, work on problems before they impact your users, thus reducing the number of unhappy users. Thank you for your time. This was the last SharePoint video. You can now download the SharePoint Headache ebook with the link below, or go ahead and download the free trial of GSX Monitor. Please do not hesitate to contact us if you have any questions. Just email us at sales@gsx.com. Thank you again, and see you next time.